Are you tired of feeling sluggish, crashing the day, or loading up on sugary energy drinks that just don't cut it? W is here to change that. It's a clean energy drink formulated to give you focus, clarity, and long lasting energy without the jitters or crash. No sugar, no artificial dyes, just results. Whether you're grinding through a workout, editing content, or pulling an all nighter for the big game, W's got your back. And guess what? As a listener of this podcast, you get 10% off your order when you use code West Coast at checkout. That's WESTCOAST, all one word, for 10% off at www.dubby.gg. Fuel up the smart way with W. Welcome to the West Coast WVU podcast brought to you by the 224 Podcast Network. My name is James Brooks. I'm your host. Thanks so much for joining me on this week's episode. Not a ton to talk about this week. This probably will be a little bit of a shorter episode. The main thing that happened this past week was the MLB Draft, in which 5 West Virginia players were chosen. First being Logan Sauve, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. The catcher for West Virginia, he was selected in the 7th round, 200th overall by the Athletics. Then we had Kyle West, outfielder and first baseman, taken in the 13th round, 404th overall by the New York Yankees. Robbie Porco, the right-handed pitcher, taken in the 13th round, also actually back-to-back picks, 405th overall by the Los Angeles Dodgers. Griffin Kern, left-handed pitcher, he was selected in the 14th round, 410th overall by the Athletics. So two West Virginia guys going to the Athletics in the same draft, and then rounding out number 5, the 5th guy taken from West Virginia was Skylar King, outfielder who was taken in the 15th round, 448th overall by the Boston Red Sox. So it's pretty cool to have 5 guys taken in the draft. They definitely were later round draft picks, which that's fine. I mean, to see 5 more guys getting a chance to go play pro baseball in the majors and on some pretty fun teams. You know, we got the Yankees, you got the Dodgers, the Red Sox, the Athletics. We'll see what happens there. I mean, they're going to be moving to Vegas and stuff, so maybe they'll end up being good. Hey, maybe these West Virginia guys will move up the ladder, move up the pipeline, and end up being solid players for the Athletics. But fun to see more West Virginia guys getting a chance to go pro. I mean, we were just talking about this with JJ Weatherholt in the last episode. He got moved up to AAA, and I think in his first AAA game he hit a home run and a double or a triple. He just keeps on killing it, even up in the AAA level. So this brings WVU's all-time total to 117 players chosen in the MLB Draft. WVU has also now had at least one player taken in 12 of the last 13 years, and all but 4 drafts since 1984, and has had multiple players taken in the first year player draft, 11 of the last 12 years, only exception being the 5-round 2020 draft. And this comes from the WVUsports.com article that came out about that. So pretty cool. And then we'll just go through just kind of the resume of these players. So let's see. Second consecutive year that WVU has had at least 5 players selected in the draft. So, I mean, baseball team's been killing it, like we've been kind of talking about. Overall, it's just the 6th time that 5 Mountaineers have gone in a single draft, along with 99, 2001, 2014, 2019, and 2024. So, while it's happened in back-to-back years, it hasn't, this is only the 5th, 6th time that 5 or more players have been selected in the same draft. So, pretty historic for the most part to see so many WVU guys taken in one draft. And so Sauve played for 3 years with West Virginia. He hit 284 with 20 home runs and 97 RBIs. He added 29 doubles, a triple, 119 runs scored, stole 12 bases. Defensively, he threw out 24 potential base stealers, and had a 991 fielding percentage. He's also the first Mountaineer catcher to be drafted since Ivan Gonzalez in 2019. Shout out to him. He was named to the All Big 12 first team in 2025 after being an All Big 12 honorable mention selection as a freshman 2 years ago. He was also named to the Clemson Regional All Tournament team in this past playoffs, and the Tucson Regional All Tournament team in 2024. That's awesome. Kyle West, in 2 years with West Virginia, hit 298 with 25 home runs, 81 RBIs, tallied 25 doubles, 81 runs scored, stole 15 bases and then as a senior, he was named the All Big 12 second team, earned a spot on the Big 12 championship all tournament team. In 2024, he was an All Big 12 honorable mention selection. Porco, he spent 3 years with West Virginia, he went 6-2 with a 6.78 ERA, 79 strikeouts in 67.2 innings pitched. He becomes the ninth Mountaineer to be drafted by the Dodgers, tied with the St. Louis Cardinals for the most. So, shout out to the Dodgers and the Cardinals for picking West Virginia players. Kern spent just 1 year in Morgantown, but he made it count according to West Virginia WVUsports.com. He went 5-3 with a 3.36 ERA as the team's Friday night starter all season long. That's awesome. College baseball is so funny to have. You basically have your one starter for all of your Friday night games, basically, which like it makes sense. You know, you play the weekend turn, you have the weekend series against your conference opponents, and then usually you have a midweek game against a non-conference opponent. And so it makes sense to have the Friday starter kind of be the same, but the pitching rotations are just different than MLB. So that's just a funny little aside there. So he was the Friday night starter all along, struck out 103 batters while walking just 30 in 99 innings. He made it to the NCBWA, which I believe it's the Baseball Writers of America, the All America third team, All Big 12 first team, Big 12 championship all tournament team, and the NCAA Clemson regional all tournament team. Shout out to him. That's awesome. And then King, he played 3 seasons at West Virginia. He appeared in 134 games, hitting 274 with 8 home runs and 61 RBIs, adding 79 runs and 22 stolen bases. A standout defensive center fielder, King also had 5 outfield assists with the Mountaineers while making highlight reel catches. So yeah, that's awesome. Awesome to get these guys out in the MLB pipeline, playing for some, being drafted by some great teams. I mean, you could argue the Athletics, like I said, but the Dodgers, the Red Sox, what was the other team? The Yankees. So pretty cool. And I don't know how many of my listeners are big into college baseball. I know I've said myself that I'm historically haven't been the biggest college baseball fan, and it kind of a you could argue kind of a bandwagon fan in the sense that like I pay the most attention when West Virginia is doing well, and I'll get excited like at the beginning of the season, and then you kind of peter out a little bit towards the middle of the season when things feel kind of slow, and then once the regionals and stuff pick up, then you get a little more excited. So I I would assume that most of my listeners or people that listen to this or follow me on socials feel kind of similar. So that's kind of why I want to read through those guys' stats and stuff because I myself admittedly did not know. I've seen those guys' names thrown around and stuff, but didn't know like the specifics of how good they were this season or not and stuff. So I figured you guys might care about that. So that's really the big news from West Virginia sports standpoint is more guys going to the MLB through the MLB draft, more professional Mountaineers, which is awesome. And then from there, I mean, we're really looking towards football season. I believe most people feel the same as me, where we're just sitting patiently or not so patiently waiting for football season to start. I think I've been on my TikTok, I've been putting out a bunch of highlight reels and from the archive type posts about past Mountaineer highlights and past big games and things like that. And I feel like I've gotten a lot of engagement on those. So I feel like people are just chomping at the bit for football season to start. I think something I just saw actually that was posted an hour ago. I'm recording this on Wednesday, July 16th, from the Pat McAfee show. He was on with Kirk Herbstreit, and they're just going through the West Virginia football schedule, and they're talking about, I mean, quote, Kirk Herbstreit says, we've got to get back to Morgantown with College Game Day this season, and they're talking about week 3 against Pitt. Now, who knows? I mean, I think there's like one other big game week 3. I forget who it is. I think it's Texas A&M. I could try and find it really quick. At Texas A&M against Notre Dame, I think is what people have been saying. There is their guess for week 3 college game day, which is kind of fair. I mean, that's a pretty good matchup. But the thing is like you get, and I talked a lot about the backyard brawl in my last episode. And if you didn't get a chance to listen to it, definitely go listen to it, talking about just the top 25 rivalries in college football. And I went through the ranking that The Athletic had posted earlier that week and kind of made my case for why the backyard brawl should be in the top 25. And I compared it to some of the other rivalries listed that were in the top 25 that I didn't think were better than the backyard brawl. And I think with the thing is like usually if West Virginia and Pitt were in the same conference, the backyard brawl would be played towards rivalry week. Hard to say, towards the end of the season. And in that case, you have a lot of competition. You have Ohio State, Michigan, you have UCLA, USC, you have Auburn, Alabama, all these big, legitimately big rivalries. And for like a college game day type of thing, you could see West Virginia and Pitt getting passed over from a college game day standpoint. It's not too often that you get a really strong rivalry game, a historic rivalry game, and a game that will like the backyard brawl. It's been a good game the past, what has it been, 3 seasons that it's been played so far. Everyone's been a good game, and it's really rare that you get such a good historic rivalry game in week 3 of college football. Should it be played in rivalry week? I wish it was, but I understand once you get into conference play, you're not going to schedule a non-conference game towards the end of the year. I understand why it's not that way, but it's pretty rare to get such a good game that you're going to get a lot of people tuned into the game for a week 3 rivalry game like that. Like, why wouldn't College Game Day want to do that? And I understand Texas A&M, Notre Dame have huge fan bases, and so from a viewership standpoint, you could argue that you're still going to probably get more viewers in for that matchup, which maybe that's true. But from a rivalry standpoint, you got to give the backyard brawl some respect. And I mean, the fact that both Kirk Herbstreit and Pat McAfee are saying it on live television that they want to get game day to Morgantown and specifically for the backyard brawl week 3 seems promising. So that's pretty exciting if that's the case. I definitely think it should. I understand that both teams are not they're probably not college football playoff teams this season, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a good game. The atmosphere is going to be amazing, and why not? Why not highlight one of the, really one of the best historic rivalries in college football? I think a lot of people sleep on it. I think people call it like so many people say it's like the best, most underrated rivalry in college football. I think it's true. I think a lot of people overlook it. And to be fair, when I think about myself from growing up on the West Coast as a UCLA fan, not super privy to like the Big East and those conferences back east and stuff. I honestly like I never it's kind of funny because Pitt fans always like to talk about the national championships and they talk about the overall rivalry record and they talk about the 13-9 game, obviously, the game that I suppose shall not be mentioned, even though I did just mention it. But I never thought of Pitt as being a good football program. I always thought of West Virginia as being a good football program. And maybe it was just the time I was born. I was born in the 90s, got into college football in the mid 2000s when West Virginia was good and Pitt overall was not that great. I mean, I know they had Larry Fitzgerald and Aaron Donald and those kind of guys and LaShawn McCoy. Um, they've had really good players that have done well in the NFL and things like that. But historically, I'd always assumed that Pitt was a poverty program, like just as a general college football fan that didn't pay a ton of attention to the Big East growing up. I just assumed Pitt was a poverty program. And so it's always funny to me when Pitt fans try and argue about the rivalry history or national championships and stuff. And it's like, yeah, you guys won a lot of games like in the early 1900s. Like, and that's fine. I mean, I think it needs to be fair either way. Like, if as a West Virginia fan now, if the roles were reversed and we were leading in the rivalry, then I also would probably bring it up. So I don't want to argue it too much. I don't blame them too much for doing that, but it's more just a funny aside for myself as a fan, a college football fan, and now a West Virginia fan, looking back on it, I just assumed Pitt was, like I said, a poverty football program. And so I forget where I was going with this. I think I was just saying like I do now looking back on it, I do kind of see like yeah, Pitt they won national championships a long time ago. Have a they lead the rivalry record. I think I was just trying to say like I would have assumed that West Virginia was leading the rivalry. Like, I just have always thought that West Virginia was the better program. So uh, all that being said, I definitely think that there is not a better game than the backyard brawl in week 3 for college game day to go to. And I think it'd be really cool for to see Pat McAfee back out there. I mean, I feel like he's going to be out there regardless, if possible. But Kirk Herbstreit and all those guys from college game day definitely should be out there for the backyard brawl. Trying to see if there's anything else. Some other news that popped up recently is a commit, which I don't. The thing with commits with college football right now is like it's so hard unless you've been tracking these guys for their high school career and stuff. It's hard to really gauge on whether or not it's a good pickup. I think this got posted more just because it's funny, but a guy named Sir Paul Cheeks, who refers to him on his own Twitter account as Jesus and Cleats, he committed to West Virginia yesterday. So kind of just a funny thing. Unnecessary roughness, the Barstool account on Twitter posted about it. So I was like, oh, who's this guy? I don't know how much he's a running back, supposed to be super fast. So we'll see. We'll see. Something to pay attention to. Just thought that was kind of funny. And then, a lot of the talk lately on X and stuff on Twitter has been predicting wins, predicting looking at the schedule for West Virginia. And I've talked a little bit about it. I don't think I've gone. I'll probably wait until a little closer to the start of the season to do like a full-on prediction type episode. But College Football Live on Twitter posted West Virginia's schedule and asked how many wins does West Virginia get in 2025? And it's mostly West Virginia fans commenting, which take it with a grain of salt, right? We're the ones who were saying that West Virginia was going to win by 2 touchdowns against Penn State, both both seasons where we lost. So I appreciate West Virginia's overall optimism when it comes to predicting games. But I do think, I mean, like Old Grad from the Old Grad podcast, he said Rich Rod will get a 7 in the regular season. We will beat Pitt. Like I feel like pretty confident. I mean, I agree with that. I think I've kind of talked about that. I do think that 6 to 7 wins is realistic. It's so hard to say because of the roster turnover. We don't know. We know Jaheim White. We know Nico Marchiol, but we don't even know if Nico is going to be the starting quarterback at this point. So even then, it's like it could be a starting quarterback that we don't know his game or how he plays and stuff. And even with Nico, like he's gone out. Nico won us the backyard brawl 2 years ago in Morgantown after Garrett Green got hurt. He played really well against Oklahoma State, I think it was last season. He had some really great plays. So overall, like I like Nico. I think he's a very solid, formidable quarterback that can win us games. But at the same time, like with Rich Rod coming in, he doesn't owe Nico anything. He doesn't owe anybody anything. He's going to put the best players that he thinks should be on the field out there. And I trust his decision and stuff. So that being said, it's hard to predict because of that roster turnover. We don't know who's going to be on the field. Rodney Gallagher is another guy that we brought back or who stayed on the team. And even then, like he's only got so much playing time with Neil Brown. He had the game-winning touchdown against Kansas last season, which was awesome. I feel like he started coming out and kind of being able to play his game a little bit more last season, but I don't feel like he's reached his full potential. I do think he could do that with Rich Rod, he's a fast player. Looks like he's put on some muscle, like he's getting bigger. So I like what I see from him there. But yeah, most of these comments, right? Like this one's pretty funny. At WVU Grizzly, best case scenario 12-0, worst case scenario 0-12. Can't argue. Someone said 9-3 Big 12 championship game with a shot at the playoffs. I mean, I like the optimism. Um, 7-5. Another one saying 7-5. This guy Drew Hughes says if we go 1-11 but beat Pitt, it would be a good season. Beating Pitt is kind of like right now the number one thing that matters, and I think that's like the number one thing that Rich Rod cares about as well, which is kind of funny. Mountaineers headline says 9. Double D and WV says 6. Pick 6 pack, which is just like a general college football account, says max is 8, floor is 5. I feel like that's pretty fair. This person says probably 6, maybe 7. This is a non-West Virginia fan. Probably 6, maybe 7. So he's kind of right where I'm at. 7-5, 6 wins, 6-6. This person's saying I'll be generous and say 4. I don't think he's a West Virginia fan. The thing is I think of non-West Virginia fans write off West Virginia, like the preseason rankings where they've had West Virginia last in the Big 12. Part of it is because they don't know the roster, and you can't really argue that. I get that when you don't really know what you're going to see on the field. You have a first year head coach in the sense that like he's back for the first time with a new roster in Rich Rod. You can't argue the assumption that we're not going to do as well. But I just think like Rich Rod is the kind of guy that's going to bring out guys that can compete, guys that play hard, like almost the same vibe as the baseball team, the West Virginia baseball team, where they might not be the best college baseball players out there. They might not be better than like LSU and some of these SEC schools, but they're going to go out, they're going to compete, they're going to play hard. They're going to win games because of how hard they play. Games that maybe they would other teams would otherwise lose. So I feel confident in the sense that we're going to be competing in every game. Whereas with Neil Brown, I was not confident about that in the slightest. You go up against a team that's sniffing the top 25, and it's like we might lose by 30 points. Whereas with Rich Rod, I maybe that happens one game, but I don't think it happens more than one game. And looking at the schedule, I don't know that there's a team that really could blow us out. Like, um, first 3 games, Robert Morris, Ohio, Pitt, like those are all games we should win. Pitt might be a close game, it might be a good game, but ultimately we should win that game. I mean, I know Pitt will argue the same thing. They'll say that we should win this game too, but that's fine. Kansas, winnable. Utah, probably winnable. Is Cam Rising still around? Is he coming back for his 8th season? BYU, probably winnable. They lost their starting quarterback. I don't know who's their backup is, but UCF winnable, TCU winnable, Houston winnable, Colorado winnable, Arizona State winnable. I mean, Arizona State was really good last season. They made it to the college football playoff, but they lost Cam Scatabo. I don't know if they lost who else they've lost or not, but um, this happened with TCU also, where they went to the national championship, got blown out by Georgia, and then came back and were not very good. So I wouldn't be surprised if ASU came back and wasn't very good, unless they're bringing back a bunch of guys that I just don't know. And then Texas Tech, not word there. Like someone commented saying like I'm having a hard time. I'm having a hard time. It was Jeff Ruff who said I'm trying to find a loss here. And like honestly, I kind of feel like when he said that and I read that comment, I looked at the schedule and I was like, honestly, I kind of feel the same. Like I don't know. Utah, maybe. I mean, historically, Utah's probably the best team on our schedule. But like, I don't know. I'll have to. I'll do some more digging into these teams to make a more educated guess on my picks before the season. But as of right now, I kind of agree. Like, do I think we're gonna go 12-0? No. But do I think that we could win 7 games, maybe 8 games? Definitely. I mean, I guess the hardest thing is like the turnover on our offensive line, which like the last few years, even with Neil Brown's sad coaching, we've had a really, really, really good offensive line, which has helped obviously all aspects of the game, passing, rushing, all of it. And from what I've heard is that we've had a lot of turnover on the offensive line and the guys coming in, we just don't, they're untested in a way. We just don't know what to expect also in other ways. So it's hard to say. But at the end of the day, I'm just looking forward to college football season. I think like I'm feeling hopeful. I'm feeling optimistic, cautiously optimistic is kind of how I'm feeling. I think that we can come out and win a good amount of games. I mean, you look back to Rich Rod's first stint at West Virginia, and the first few years were a little rough. You know, he wasn't. It wasn't until what was it, year 4 or 5, somewhere between years three and five, where he started picking things up, started getting some really good wins, and then West Virginia became like a perennial ranked team for the most part, and like was competing for eventually in national championship conversations and things like that. So I think like in one sense, you do have to give a little grace in this first season with the roster turnover and all those types of things. But at the end of the day, I think like this first year in his second stint with West Virginia, I think we can expect more. I think we can put a little more hope into this team, into his coaching. He always says it himself. I'm a better coach. I'm a better coach today than I was 20 years ago. I'm a better coach today than I was yesterday. Like he is a guy that's constantly trying to improve, and he's come in and he's done well at other programs and stuff after he left West Virginia. And I think he's coming back. I do believe that he's coming back a better coach. I do think he did find lightning in a bottle a little bit when he was with West Virginia with his spread offense and fast paced offense, where like that kind of game wasn't being played quite as much back then. Whereas like today, that's kind of the standard. So in one sense, defenses are a little more prepared for the style of play that he likes to play and stuff. But he's continued to do well the last few, over the course of his coaching career. Like he's managed, and there's always something. Offense always has a little bit of an advantage, and you can always throw in some wrinkles here and there. And yeah, like he might not have that advantage that he had 20 years ago, where like teams are just scrambling to try and figure out how to defend his offenses and stuff like that, his offensive schemes. But I do think that he is a better coach than he was back then. He knows how to get more out of his players probably now than he did back then, and I'm excited to see what he has in store for this season. So we are, what are we? Less than 2 months away. We were yesterday was 60 days from the Pitt game, which is week 3. So definitely less than 2 months away from the start of the season. And I guess we're like a month and a half away. It's mid July, and the season starts August 30th. So definitely very excited for the season to get started. I know I said this was going to be a shorter episode, but I kind of started rambling about football and stuff, which tends to happen. So anyways, thank you so much for listening, and go Mountaineers.